Imagine, if you will, a quiet morning in a well-ordered home. You are over 60, perhaps enjoying the early light, before the rest of the world stirs. But the silence is broken by a familiar, nagging ritual that first, sharp clearing of the throat. Your hand reaches, almost by reflex, for the blue bottle on the nightstand, the over-the-counter decongestant you've come to rely on to dry things up. You believe this is the responsible choice, an act of hygiene to start your day with a clean slate. Yet, as a clinician who has spent decades observing the delicate interplay of the human respiratory system, I must tell you that this ritual is a profound deception. What you perceive as a nuisance to be suppressed is, in reality, a sophisticated biological alarm system. By forcing that dryness, you are not solving a problem. You are quietly rewiring your body's mucus production for a state of permanent dependency. The myth of the clean throat has led many of our peers into a cycle of physiological strain. We have been taught to view phlegm as an enemy, a sign of impurity or illness. But in the senior body, mucus is an essential, high-tech filtration lining. When you reach for synthetic suppressants, you are engaging in a cold, biological calculation that rarely favors your long-term vitality. These medications force a dry out of the mucosal membranes, which sounds ideal in theory. However, the body, in its infinite wisdom, senses this artificial drought and triggers a rebound effect. It begins to produce secretions that are even thicker, more viscous, and significantly harder to clear. You are essentially trading a temporary inconvenience for a chronic, sticky trap. To understand why this matters, we must look at the target pathway, the sinus-to-throat drainage pipeline. As we age, our mucus rheology, the way this fluid flows, changes. It becomes less like a lubricating stream and more like a stagnant pool. When you mask this with decongestants, you are often ignoring a silent intruder known as Laryngopharyngeal Reflux, or LPR. Unlike the classic heartburn that many associate with reflux, LPR is silent. It involves stomach acid or non-acidic enzymes traveling upward, not just to the esophagus, but all the way to the delicate tissues of the throat. If you only treat the annoyance of the resulting mucus, you are allowing that acid to sit on your vocal folds and laryngeal tissues, causing chronic inflammation while you focus on the sticky net your body has deployed to protect itself. Let us redefine our relationship with this substance. I want you to think of mucus not as waste, but as a sticky net, an elegant biological defense designed to trap pollutants, dust, and viruses before they can reach the inner sanctum of your lungs. In your 60s and beyond, your lung tissue becomes more vulnerable to the particulate matter of the modern world. The body overproduces mucus during recovery phases as a defensive barrier. Furthermore, mucus serves a lubrication mandate. Without it, the friction generated within the upper esophageal path during speech and swallowing would lead to rapid tissue degradation. Phlegm is not your enemy. It is the messenger. It is the signal that there is a breach in the link between your gastrointestinal and respiratory systems, or perhaps that your immune system is in the midst of an active, albeit slow, recovery phase. Consider the common senior experience of the lingering infection. When we were 20, a cold was a 3-day affair. At 65, we often expect that same recovery speed, and when it doesn't happen, we use medication to force a return to normal. This leads to the something stuck sensation, a feeling of a globus in the throat that prompts aggressive, repetitive throat clearing. This mechanical clearing is, in itself a form of trauma. It is like sandpapering the delicate lining of your larynx. Many of our peers brush off this chronic phlegm as just aging, while underlying conditions like COPD or chronic bronchitis quietly advance under the cover of those over the counter medications. We must also acknowledge the dietary blind spot. You may have consumed dairy, wheat, and gluten your entire life without issue, but the senior body often develops systemic sensitivities. In these cases, excess mucus is the body's primary way of signaling that it can no longer process these staples with the efficiency it once possessed. How then do we move toward a minimalist protocol that supports the system rather than suppressing the symptom? We begin with viscosity management. The most potent medication at your disposal is cellular hydration. When you are dehydrated, your secretions thicken into a glue-like consistency. By maintaining a high level of fluid intake, you naturally thin the sticky net, allowing the body's natural ciliary action to move it along, without the need for aggressive coughing. The second step is mechanical loosening. Instead of chemical interference, we utilize the physics of warm aerosol particles. A hot bath or a steamy shower allows humidity to enter the airways, breaking the molecular bonds of the mucus. This is not just about comfort. It is about changing the physical state of the phlegm, so it can be cleared with a gentle, productive breath rather than a violent clearing of the throat. The third pillar is osmotic clearance. A daily gargle with warm salt water is an ancient remedy that stands up to modern clinical scrutiny. Through the principle of osmotic pressure, the salt water physically draws out accumulated fluid from the tissues of the throat, reducing swelling and naturally loosening the sticky net. It is a precise, mechanical solution that bypasses the need for systemic drugs. The fourth step is what I call elimination biohacking. I challenge you to a 2-week removal of the hidden culprits: dairy, wheat, and gluten. This is not a diet in the trendy sense. It is a clinical investigation. By removing these potential triggers, you allow your systemic inflammation to subside, often revealing that the source of your chronic mucus was nothing more than a localized allergic response to a daily habit. Finally, we look to productive irritants. Incorporating therapeutic spices like chili or cayenne pepper can stimulate natural sinus drainage. These substances act as natural expectorants, encouraging the body to move secretions forward and supporting the anti-inflammatory pathways of the lungs. However, as we embrace this minimalist path, we must also be disciplined in our observation. There is a clear decision filter for when you must step outside of home-based support and consult a physician. These are the red flags that require immediate clinical intervention. If you ever notice blood in your mucus, even a faint streak, it is a signal that cannot be ignored. If you experience sudden shortness of breath, or if your mucus takes on a dark brown or foul-smelling character, these are signs of bacterial infections or more serious underlying pathologies. A fever above 103 degrees, accompanied by chest pain, or a cough that persists beyond 3 weeks despite your best efforts, requires a professional evaluation. For the senior body, these symptoms can escalate with surprising speed. Your health is far too valuable to downplay what your body is telling you. Millions of Americans over 60 live in a state of constant, quiet exhaustion because of this nagging sensation in their throats. They have accepted it as a tax on their age, a price to be paid for the passing years. They wake up reaching for water. They struggle to finish a sentence without a cough, and they feel a loss of authority over their own physical presence. But I want you to know that this is not an inevitable part of the aging process. There is a communication. By shifting from suppressing a symptom to supporting a system, you regain that lost authority. You move away from the chemical sledgehammer of unregulated over the counter use and toward precision habits that respect your biological complexity. The outcome is not just less mucus. The outcome is the ability to engage in a long conversation with your grandchildren without the anxiety of a nagging cough. It is the peace of mind that comes from knowing you are breathing easy because your body is in balance, not because it has been silenced. Your body is not failing you. It is speaking to you in the only language it has. It is time to stop trying to mute the messenger and start listening to the message. Drink your water with intention. Use the steam of your morning shower as a therapeutic tool. Be mindful of the fuel you provide your system. You have the wisdom and the resilience to manage your health on your own terms. Here is to your resilience, your self reliance, and to living a life where you are truly, finally breathing easy.